All right, so let's take a trip back in time, okay? Imagine a typical Sunday morning, September 5th, 1982. West Des Moines, Iowa, peaceful, quiet,
Yeah.
birds chirping maybe. It's the kind of morning where nothing much seems to be happening. And 12-year-old Johnny Gosch is getting ready for his paper route. Like most kids his age, he had a paper route. Got to get up early, deliver those papers. He's loading up his little red wagon. It even had GOSH painted on the side. And his dachshund, Gretchen, is patiently waiting. Typical family dog just wants to go for a walk. Now, usually, Johnny's dad, John, would go with him on Sundays because the paper was heavier, but that day, Johnny decided he could handle it himself. It's just a typical kid wanting to do things on his own. But by 7:45 that same morning, the Gosh's phone is ringing off the hook. People are calling, saying they never got their paper. John Gosch went out looking, and just 2 blocks from home, he found the wagon, just sitting there, full of newspapers. But no Johnny.
It's like the moment that every day just shatters.
Right.
You have this image of peace and quiet, and then boom, something's terribly wrong. That red wagon, the undelivered papers, is just unsettling.
It is, right. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The whole Johnny Gosch case. This is going to be a deep dive into everything, the background is Disappearance, the investigation, all the theories that have come up over the years. Noreen Gosch's claims, the impact this whole thing had. And get this, we'll also be talking about some big developments that have come up just this year in 2025. This is a story that's captivated people for decades, and maybe we're finally getting closer to some answers.
What gets me is how a kid can just vanish from his own neighborhood on a Sunday morning. It really makes you question how safe any place really is.
Right. It's a parent's worst nightmare. So to really understand what happened, we need to understand Johnny, who he was. Johnny Gosch was born on November 12th, 1969. So at 82, he was 12, a bright kid full of energy. And everyone says he was really responsible. He wasn't just delivering papers. He had hobbies. He loved building and launching model rockets. And that paper route, he was serious about it.
He sounds like a pretty good kid. What else stood out about him?
Well, he was mature for his age. I mean, think about it. He'd been doing that paper route for over a year. His parents trusted him to go out alone on a Sunday with a bigger load of papers. That said something about Johnny. He was the youngest of 3 kids, so you can imagine he wanted to prove himself.
Yeah.
And his parents, John and Noreen, they're proud of him. It's almost tragic that they let him go alone that day. Looking back, it's easy to say what if, but at the time, it probably seemed like no big deal.
It's like this tiny little change to the routine, and it ends up having these huge consequences. It's haunting.
It really is. Yeah. And it's important to remember, this was 1982. West Des Moines was a different place then. It was a quieter time, communities were closer, and kids had more freedom to roam around. The idea of a child being abducted, it just wasn't something people really thought about. So when Johnny disappeared, it was like the whole town lost its innocence. It was a huge shock.
Yeah, it was like a wake-up call for a lot of people. Suddenly, the world felt a lot less safe.
Right. So let's go back to that morning, September 5th. Johnny leaves his house at 5:45 a.m. with Gretchen in his wagon. His first stop was the corner of 42nd and Marcourt, where he met another paperboy, Mike. They were supposed to sort the papers there, get them ready for their routes.
And Mike becomes like a key witness, right? He's one of the last people to see Johnny.
Exactly. And what Mike said was this. A blue 2-tone car pulls up, stocky guy inside. Asked Johnny for directions. Now another guy, John Rossi, he saw the same car, same guy, talking to Johnny. And he said he felt like something wasn't right about the whole thing. It just gave him a bad feeling. And then, not long after that, Johnny is gone.
Wow, so there's this tiny window of time and a mysterious blue car. You have to wonder, did anyone else see this car? Did anyone get a good look at the guy driving?
Right. Those are the questions everyone was asking. And it gets worse. At 7:45, the Gosches start getting calls from people saying their paper never came. That's when John Gosch goes out to look for Johnny. And that's when he finds the wagon. Abandoned. 2 blocks from home. Still full of papers. And Gretchen is gone too.
The fact that the papers weren't delivered, it means whatever happened to Johnny, it happened fast, before he could even start his route. And Gretchen being gone too, well, that's just another layer of weirdness.
Totally. And here's something that just makes you angry when you think about it.
Yeah.
Back in 1982, the police couldn't even officially declare a kid missing for 72 hours. 3 whole days. Can you imagine that? Waiting 3 days before you can even start a real investigation. It's crazy. Those first few hours, those first few days, they're the most important in a missing person case. And because of this stupid law, so much time was wasted. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, that 72-hour rule, it just seems so wrong. Especially when you're talking about a kid. It's like they didn't take it seriously enough.
Right. It's like they thought, oh, he's just a runaway. But that wasn't Johnny. He was responsible. He had no reason to run away. He loved his family. He had a dog he loved. He wasn't some troubled teenager. He was a 12-year-old kid who everyone said was a good kid.
It's like they completely missed the point.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
But eventually, the police did start to think maybe it was an abduction. But by then, like we said, valuable time had been lost. And there were very few clues to go on. They focused on the blue car, of course, and the stocky man, but no one had a good description. No license plate. It was like they disappeared into thin air.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, right? And every hour that passes, that haystack just gets bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because it was such a serious case, the FBI got involved. They brought in more people, more resources. They went door to door. They talked to everyone they could find. But nothing. No real leads. It was like Johnny had vanished.
And when the official investigation stalls, that's when you start seeing private investigators.
Right.
The family's desperate. They'll try anything.
Exactly. And that's what the Gosches did. They hired Jim Rothstein. He was an NYPD detective, real experienced guy. And later on, they even hired Ted Gunderson. He was an ex-FBI chief. Gunderson was kind of known for looking into some pretty wild theories. You know? But the Gosches were desperate. They were willing to try anything. And their findings, or at least some of them, did hint at something really dark going on. But it was all just hints. No real proof.
It's like they were getting closer to something, but they couldn't quite grasp it.
That's a good way to put it. And meanwhile, the community, they were doing everything they could too, putting up flyers, organizing searches. They were looking everywhere. You know, parks, woods, any place a kid might wander off to or be taken to. It was a huge effort.
It really shows how much people cared. It's like the whole community was in mourning.
You know, it was a huge deal for West Des Moines. But despite all that effort, nothing turned up.
Yeah.
No Johnny, no clues. And when you don't have answers, people start coming up with their own.
Yeah.
And that's where the theories and conspiracies come in.
Yeah, it's human nature. When something doesn't make sense, we try to fill in the blanks, even if it means making stuff up.
That's exactly what happened. There was just no hard evidence pointing in any direction. So Johnny's disappearance became this breeding ground for all kinds of theories, some more plausible than others. And one of the biggest theories, and this one comes from Johnny's mom, Noreen, is that he was taken by a child pedophile ring, a ring that was trafficking kids across state lines.
Noreen Gosch, she's been so vocal about this theory. She's never given up hope that Johnny is alive, and she really believes he was part of this horrible trafficking ring.
She does. And she even links Johnny's case to something called the Franklin scandal. Now, this was a really disturbing case out of Omaha, Nebraska in the late 80s. It involved allegations of a child abuse ring. Powerful people were implicated. It was a huge scandal. And because of that, a lot of families of missing children started looking into it, hoping for some connection. And Noreen Gosch said she had witnesses who told her they'd seen Johnny in Oklahoma months after he disappeared. They said he was being held captive. This just solidified her belief that he was a victim of this trafficking ring.
The Franklin scandal, it's a really dark chapter. A lot of people believe there was a cover-up, that powerful people got away with terrible crimes. And it's understandable why Noreen Gosch would see a connection. But the thing is, there's no real proof linking Johnny's disappearance to the Franklin scandal.
Right. It's a theory. And while it's a disturbing one, and it's understandable why Noreen believes it, there's just no evidence to back it up. Now, another theory is that maybe Johnny was taken by a lone predator. Sadly, there were a lot of serial killers operating in the Midwest back then, guys like Larry Eiler. He had in the area around the time Johnny vanished. So it's possible that Johnny just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and ran into someone really dangerous.
Yeah, it's a chilling thought, but it's possible. Serial killers, they're opportunistic. And a kid delivering papers early in the morning could have been an easy target. But again, there's no proof, no evidence linking Eiler or any other serial killer to Johnny's case.
Right, it's just another theory. And then there's this other really unsettling thing. A few years after Johnny disappeared, two other paper boys vanished in Des Moines. Eugene Martin in 1984 and Mark Allen in 1986. And their disappearances were kind of similar to Johnny's. So you have to wonder, was there someone specifically targeting paper boys in Des Moines? Or was it just a horrible coincidence?
It's a disturbing pattern, for sure, and the police would have definitely looked into it. Was there something about being a paperboy that made these kids vulnerable? Or was it just bad luck?
It's a question that's hard to answer.
It is. And then you have the theories that are, well, they're out there. Some people think Johnny was taken for government experiments. Others think it was some kind of satanic ritual. There are even people who think Johnny escaped and is living under a new identity somewhere.
Yeah, those theories, they tend to pop up when a case goes cold and people are desperate for answers. They're not usually based on anything real. But it shows how much this case still fascinates people.
It does. But for this deep dive, we're going to stick to the facts and the theories that at least have some basis in reality. And one of those is Noreen Gosch's claim that Johnny visited her in 1997, 15 years after he vanished.
This is a huge part of the story.
Yeah.
And it's really controversial. After all those years of searching, Noreen Gosch says Johnny came to her apartment one night. He was with another man, and she described it in detail. It was a short visit, very rushed and emotional. She said Johnny looked pale and scared. And he told her he had been abducted and forced into this pedophile ring. He said they abused him for years, and then when he got older, they just let him go.
Yeah.
He was living under a new name, and he was too afraid to come forward. He even begged Noreen to stop looking for him. He said it was too dangerous.
It's a powerful story, and you can see why it would give people hope, even after all those years. But a lot of people didn't believe it.
They didn't. Johnny's dad, John, he was separated from Noreen by then, and he said he didn't believe it happened. He thought maybe Noreen was just imagining things, and the police, they looked into it, but there was no evidence, no fingerprints, no witnesses.
Yeah, the lack of evidence is a big problem. If this visit really happened, you'd think there'd be something to back it up. But there's nothing.
Right. But Noreen, she's always maintained that it happened. She says she knows it was Johnny. And she's also said that later on she got pictures of Johnny in captivity. She says these pictures prove she's telling the truth.
Those pictures, if they exist, they could be the key to the whole case. But no one has ever seen them except Noreen. So it's another piece of the puzzle that's missing.
It is, and it just adds to the mystery. But the impact of Johnny's disappearance, it goes way beyond his family.
Oh yeah, this case changed how we think about missing kids. It was huge. I mean, Johnny's face was one of the first to appear on milk cartons.
That's right. In 1984, they started putting pictures of missing kids on milk cartons. It was a new idea, and it really caught on. And Johnny's picture was right there. It was a reminder that this could happen to anyone. And Noreen, she became a huge advocate for missing children. She turned her grief into action. And it was because of her that Iowa passed the Johnny Gosch bill. This law said that the police had to immediately investigate any report of a missing child. No more 72-hour rule.
That's a huge change. And it spread to other states, too. So Johnny's case, even though it's still unsolved, it actually helped make things better for other families.
It did. And it probably played a role in the creation of the NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That organization has done so much to help find missing kids and prevent others from being abducted. So even though Johnny is still missing, his case has had a lasting impact.
It's a legacy no one would want, but it's important to acknowledge it.
It is. And for West Des Moines, Johnny's disappearance changed everything. Parents became a lot more cautious about letting their kids go out alone. That sense of safety and community, it was never quite the same.
It's like a loss of innocence.
Exactly. And for the Gosch family, it's been a nightmare. Noreen, she became a public figure. She was admired for her strength, but she also faced a lot of criticism and doubt. John, he mostly stayed out of the public eye. And sadly, their marriage fell apart under the strain of it all.
It's hard to imagine what they went through. The not knowing, the constant searching, the wondering. It must be incredibly painful.
It is. And what about Johnny? We remember him as this 12-year-old kid, frozen in time. It's sad to think about what he might have become, what he might have accomplished if his life hadn't been cut short. It's a tragedy. But his story, it's led to real change. More awareness, better laws, more resources for finding missing kids.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, something good can come out of it.
It is. And incredibly, there might be some new developments in Johnny's case,
Yeah.
even after all these years.
I know, right? It's like a case that just won't die. And in 2025, it seems like there might be some new hope.
There might be. Remember that podcast we mentioned, the one from 2024?
Yeah.
It got a lot of people talking about the case again. And then earlier this year, something amazing happened. A new witness came forward. Someone who says they saw what happened to Johnny.
Whoa, hold on. A new witness after all this time? That's huge.
It is. This witness is an older person who lived in West Des Moines back in '82. And they say they saw a boy who looked like Johnny being forced into a blue car that morning.
Okay, so this goes back to that blue car. But why didn't they come forward sooner?
They said they were scared. They didn't want to get involved. It's sad, but it happens sometimes. People are afraid to speak up. But now they've decided to tell their story. And the police are taking it seriously. They're looking into it.
But after 40 years, can they really trust this witness's memory? I mean, people forget things, details get mixed up.
That's true. It's a big challenge for the police. Memories fade, and a lot of the records from back then might be gone. It's going to be tough, but they're trying.
It's amazing to think that after all this time, there might be some new information.
I know, right? And there's more. Remember how much technology has changed since 1982? Well, they're using that technology to try and solve Johnny's case. They're retesting the DNA from his wagon using the latest techniques.
DNA technology has come a long way. They can get results from tiny samples now. Samples that they couldn't even test back in the 80s. Who knows what they might find?
It's a long shot, but it's worth trying. And they're also using artificial intelligence. They've created new age-progressed images of what Johnny might look like today at 55.
Those AI images, they can be really accurate. It's like looking into the future. And if someone sees that image and recognizes Johnny, it could be a huge break in the case.
Right. So while we don't have any big breakthroughs yet, there's definitely a lot of activity around Johnny's case. And it's not just the police. Online sleuths, people who are really into true crime, they're looking into it too. Some of them are trying to find links to the Franklin scandal. Others are looking at old satellite images trying to find something that the police might have missed.
It's like a whole army of amateur detectives. And sometimes they do find things. They notice things that the professionals miss.
They do. And it just shows how much this case still holds people's attention. And for Noreen Gosch, it must be like a roller coaster of emotions. The case is back in the news, there are new leads, but it also brings back all the pain and the uncertainty.
It's like a wound that's been reopened. But maybe this time it will finally heal.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So after all these years, we still don't know for sure what happened to Johnny Gosch. It's a mystery. But the new leads and the new technology, they give us some hope that maybe, just maybe, we'll finally get some answers. And for Johnny's family, for the people of West Des Moines, for everyone who's been touched by this case, those answers would mean a lot. It's been over 40 years of not knowing. And imagine what it must be like for Noreen Gosch to never give up hope, to keep searching for her son all these years. It's a story that makes you think about how precious life is and how quickly things can change. And it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
There is. And sometimes that hope is all we have.
That's true. So if you're listening to this and you remember anything about that day in September 1982, anything at all, please contact the West Des Moines Police or the NCMBC. Any little detail could be important. It could be the missing piece of the puzzle.
It could be.
And maybe finally, after all this time, Johnny Gosch can finally come home. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another look into the shadows of America's unsolved mysteries.